everyone, Beyond TCG here, and today we're going over a design video. I've been wanting to do this one for a little while, and since we're kind of in between Pokemon Horizon being done, hopefully some of you are coming up with deck ideas, maybe even playing with your friends, and eventually we'll be transitioning into set 2. I really wanted to go over this one, which is kind of Beyond TCG rants and has hot takes, which is top 10 worst Pokemon card designs. And when I say card, it could be plural. We'll see here some of them are more like general card ideas, not just one particular card, but in some cases it is one particular card. This is going to be part 1 of 2. I originally intended to have this as just one video, but next thing I knew, I was only done getting through number 6, and it was 18 minutes in, and I guess I just have a lot to say is the real answer to that. So enjoy this 2-part, starting with part 1 here. So let's just get into what is the point of this video and just some things to note. So first off, this is just my opinion, obviously. Some people might debate these different cards, some might totally agree with me. Hopefully most people agree with me, as I'm trying to be a good designer for everyone. But obviously, these aren't to be taken as the holy grail of, oh yeah, he said it's bad, therefore it must be bad. Second off, yes, I'm not a pro Pokemon player. I do play all the time. I do tournaments. As you saw in the previous episode, I have played before. I am able to win with decks. I come up with creative decks. But yes, I haven't been to some world championship or local championship or something along those lines. But I do pay attention to the decks that players are playing, and I watch these tournaments to see what's going on. And oftentimes I kind of see the same decks over and over. And I think usually what I'm trying to do is make sure there's a lot of deck diversity. And obviously, as a designer, that's what matters to me, is making sure that the games are fun as well. I hate to see some sort of tournament where it's like a top deck and then, I don't know, Mewtwo v Union shows up and we just go, oh, well, he's just going to heal himself for the next 20 turns. Like, to me, even though that might seem like, oh, maybe that's not the most broken thing ever, it does feel like, but is that fun? Like, is that even enjoyable to watch? So, just something to note there. Second off, some of these cards are out of standard since I am typically an extended player, and that's just to kind of cover anyone who's going, well, Beyond TCG, these cards, we don't even have to worry about them anymore. Well, the goal of this, first off, I still have to worry about them as an extended player. I see them all the time. But second off, it's important that we learn the lessons of why I think these cards weren't great so we can avoid doing these things again in the future. Because some of these things I do still see us doing over and over, and I just want to voice my own opinion about that in the future. Also, like I list here, I am going to list my own personal fixes for them. I'm not just going to say this card's banned, ban it, get rid of it forever. No, I do tackle this from a design perspective of, okay, this was a problem before. How do we fix this? Because some of these cards are still fun. I think they're just a little bit off in terms of their power level. And so I really just wanted to make this video overall to give everyone an idea of what I think are not really fun Pokemon cards or too strong. Again, I care about deck diversity, making sure that the games feel fun. So even if you're losing, it's not the end of the world. Because to me, like, if you get milled out or you just can't even play the game, or it feels like, oh my God, all these cards are invalidated. Like, I can't even make a deck with these cards because this one card exists. Those are the kind of things that we want to avoid, especially for me as a designer. So without further ado, let's hop into this list here.
Number 10.
All right, coming in number 10 is these giant HP tag teams in VMAX. So this is what I was talking about earlier, where there might not just be one card, but an idea of a card. And that is that the HPs keep getting higher and higher on these multi-prize cards here. I think Pokemon kind of underestimates how good a prize card is versus the ability to evolve and have giant HP. Like, the fact that these stage 2s that we have right now still have less HP than basic V Pokemon is absolutely wild to me, but that's a whole nother story. The big thing about this is that as these HPs are getting bigger and bigger, all these healing cards, the ability to just like switch out if you get too much damage on your Pokemon, that's what's getting more and more out of control. And I know we might be thinking like, oh, maybe the attacks are keeping up or things like that, but it's part of the reason why so many of these old cards get invalidated so quickly is the fact that the HPs keep going up. And then you have effects like bouncing effects where they return to your hand and stuff like that gets more and more ridiculous as the HPs get higher as well. The other thing that I wanted to note too, Mew VMAX in here, probably a prime example. why does this card have no retreat cost? Like you should not have Pokemon with 310 HP with no retreat. Even a single retreat changes this card completely. It would still be fair, but at least I would feel like, oh, they had to discard, one of their fusion energy or something. But instead, I can't tell you how many times I've brought VMAX down to only like 30 or 10 HP remaining, and then they go, oh, well, I can just retreat for free, and then that's it. So I think overall these HPs, I put this at number 10 because I do see the Pokemon card game fixing them. I'm glad to see with these EX cards coming in base Scarlet and Violet, even though the HPs are still really high, at least now they're on stage 2s instead of these, really easy to evolve stage 1. So they're taking a step in the right direction, which I'm glad. But I do feel like I have to address these because, especially these 3 cards right here, I run into them in Expanded all the time.
Number 9.
Coming in at number 9 is Arceus Dialga Palkia Tag Team here. So this is another card. I put it number 9 because I do think the design is really cool. Altered Creation is honestly a really awesome effect. I mean, you saw me put it on my own Arceus in the Horizon Rising set, but I think this card just has a little too many things going for it all at the same time that make it so crazy. The Altered Creation is so cheap and so easy to pull off. Ultimate Ray is a crazy attack. Like, it has all of this going on at once. So let me go into the fixes here, and I think I'll address each of these one at a time. So first off, remove the effect of Ultimate Ray. It's not only the fact that Altered Creation's making all your attacks dealing more damage and you're grabbing extra prize cards, it's the fact that Ultimate Ray, your follow-up attack, which you're probably going to do next turn if you already got the, Metal and Water on there, makes someone on the bench already loaded up automatically. Like, that's absolutely crazy. And the fact that even though this retreat cost is a lot, which is good, it still pretty much tells you that you're going to do that attack. And then if you don't kill ADP right then and there, which should be the drawback of even playing this card, it's worth 3 prize cards, they're probably going to retreat into some instantly loaded up threat. So I think honestly, Ultimate Ray could have no effect and ADP would still be an amazing card. Like, 150 damage for 3 energy, totally fine. But the fact that it loads up someone else, a little bit too much. Second off, increase the cost of Altered Creation itself. I don't know what Pokemon was doing when they made this card. I don't know if they forgot that Double Dragon Energy was a card, or if they just didn't care, or what was going on there. But this attack, if it costs just a single energy more, it would change this card dramatically. You would still see players using this GX attack, but it just wouldn't feel so crazy. Like, the real problem with it is the fact that people go in on their first turn and then they automatically flip this. And then me playing a single prize card deck is like, well, I guess that's the game. Like, how many times has that happened to you and you feel like, well, I just automatically lost. And also just the fact that this card being around and expanded, if you're playing a single prize card deck, you really have to think about, is this worth playing? Like, do I just lose to this card? And even though I love my Lost March deck, someone uses Altered Creation on the first turn, oh man, it is an uphill battle to win. And so, yeah, again, low HP Pokemon just become instantly terrible right there. So I think this just needs an increased cost.
Number 8.
Coming in at number 8 is the Scoop Up effects. Oh man, these cards drive me crazy as well. First off, I don't understand the flavor of them because, when you're using something like Switch and it goes back to the bench, I'm like, oh yeah, like you're retreating your Pokemon back. But when you scoop them up, that's the part where I'm like, what is this representing in the Pokemon game? To be honest, like I don't quite understand. Like, never when I'm in a Pokemon battle, like I retreat Inteleon, as you could probably all guess where I'm going with there, and then suddenly Sobble comes back out. Like, that's just one of those things that drives me a little bit crazy. And I think in particular, these cards might have been fine during the Ruby and Sapphire era, but now we're entering this era of these 300 HP Pokemon, and these cards get more and more ridiculous all the time. Like, imagine hitting Mew VMAX at 300 HP, and then they just play AZ. And even worse, Scoop Up Net here. Oh man, this one's going to have some trouble. I want to go right into Scoop Up Net with some of the things that need to happen. First off, this should only refer to rules box from here on out. So when I say that one that says, put one of your Pokemon that isn't a Pokemon with a rules box is what it needs to say. I don't know what they're going to do during Scarlet and Violet with this card. We know for a fact that we're about to get some EX Pokemon that are totally dodge that rule and have 300 plus HP. I don't know if we're going to ban this card. please ban this card. I'm just gonna say it now. Please ban this card. This is gonna be so crazy if that's how it's gonna work. If it doesn't get an errata or something like that. So, but overall, I think these effects are way too easy for anyone to use. Going into that, lower Pokemon overall HP. As you can see with my set, I'm trying to keep the HPs in a reasonable place. I didn't even put this in the set. I don't like to think of these effects in general, but if anything, hopefully, like I said, I see that happening at least with Scarlet and Violet is the HPs are kind of becoming more reasonable between the evolutions, but definitely that is something to fix this card. And overall, again, just this is too splashable. I'm fine with it on like Corviknight. I forget which set it is during Sword and Shield, but it does the same effect on an evolution. That's fair. That makes sense. That's like a good reward. But this is like put it in any deck and just abuse it over and over and over. And that I think is a little bit too unfun. And finally, like I said, please ban this card. They might do an errata, but I do not like erratas as a designer. I don't like that I could come back into a game a few years later, play Scoop Up Net, and be like, why doesn't it bounce my EX? And they're going to go, well, it used to do that, but now it does something like Yu-Gi-Oh! Has too much of that. I tried to get back into Yu-Gi-Oh! And ran into these problems, so Pokemon, please don't follow that path.
Number 7.
All right, coming in at number 7 is these multi-value trainers. So when I say multi-value trainers, it's the fact that these trainers are really easy to put in any deck, and they gain you card advantage in two different directions. So I think usually what makes Pokemon so fair is the fact that the energy acceleration and the card draw are pretty separate from each other, but these cards literally do both. So again, Welder, touch 2 fire energy from your hand, then draw 3 cards. Or Melanie that literally cheats the water energy from your discard pile to one of your Pokemon, and if you do, draw 3 cards. They restricted it to only Pokemon V, which honestly made no sense to me. In my opinion, I would expect this card to be the reverse. It would not go to a 2-prizer. It would only go to a basic. I really don't know the non-2-prizers that would be abusing abusing Melanie, but that's a whole side tangent. I think these cards just they're really, really powerful, but also they're really easy to put in any deck, and they don't feel natural, so to say. Like most energy acceleration, it's like, oh, I have this specific Pokemon that lets me do it. But instead, it's like now this entire deck has the ability to accelerate energy. So a couple of changes I want for these ones. First off, limit these, again, to not support rule box Pokemon. That's the biggest thing is like, Welder is not being dumb because it's being put on some like basic 1-prize Charizard. Welder is being dumb because someone throws out a tag team Pokemon. I think it's like Braixen and Charizard, I want to say. One of them costs 4 energy, does a ton of damage, and then you search your deck for any 2 cards and add them to your hand. And at 4 energy, I think that's totally reasonable. It's the fact that you can go Welder, double colorless energy, attack on my second turn for tons of damage and get like that doesn't seem natural. So I think these cards, I'm okay with cards that accelerate onto these multi-prizers, but there's got to be a way to probably keep that a little bit more under control. Same thing with Melanie. Like every time I play against these water decks, I'm like, haha, only 1 energy per turn. Oh, never mind. It's actually 2 energy per turn. So that's a big change that I would work on. Drawing 2 cards instead of 3. 1 less card is a huge difference between these cards. Right now, these cards are literally, like the generic Tyrannos, House, Hops, etc. Of the set with an upside. Like, that's crazy to me. Yes, oh, I have to have a fire energy in my hand. Oh, no. That is not a drawback. I think these are crazy. I think at 2 cards, you would still play these cards. It just wouldn't feel so bad to the opponent that it's like, wow, this card's so good in every direction. And finally, my other big problem with this deck, or both of these cards, is that you can play them in these colorless decks, like Blissey V and Arceus Vstar. Those are 2 cards I keep seeing abusing these supporters over and over, and that drives me crazy as well. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with making Welder only work for fire Pokemon and Melanie only work for water Pokemon. That seems to be the intention, and that's what happens most of the time. But just the fact that all of a sudden I'll be like, oh, it's Welder. Well, at least it's only fire Pokemon. And the next thing I know, Arceus V-Star is loaded up, and I'm like, what the heck? Why is Welder in a normal color deck? So I think these could use a little bit more restriction to be actually within their types at minimum. Sort of like, I think Kiawe does that. Maybe I'm wrong. So, But yeah, that's that one.
Number 6.
All right, and for the last one of today's episode, coming at number 6 is Arceus Vstar. Now, I know for some of you, you might really like this card, and you might think that this is a little bit of a crazy take, but I want you to hear me out on this one. I think this card is kind of a sign of a bigger issue going on, which is the fact that these cover Pokemon cards have been so far pushed ahead, which I get, from a business perspective and trying to make a cool set, that you want these cards that are on the pack art to be crazy. But the fact that for like the past couple of sets, like, oh my god, Fusion Strike, Brilliant Stars, Astral Radiance, Lost Origin, now we're on Silver Tempest. There's always some pack card that's like absolutely defined the meta. Just the deck has been the top deck immediately. And so I think this card is a prime example of that, and one that gets even dumber as expanded keeps going on. So first off, it's got high HP, of course, and only gives away 2 prize cards. Really annoying to knock out. These V-Star powers, I think this is kind of one of my big gripes with them that I'm going to get into, are just way too strong, especially this one in particular. The other ones are still powerful, but not as feel bad as this one. And then just like ADP, this has one of those attacks that just gets you so far ahead in card advantage. I think it's absolutely crazy. So let's go into these one by one. I think this card could use for some fixes. First off, and this is a general saying because I really wish Pokemon would hear this for all designs moving forwards. If the attack is colorless, assume it costs 1 energy. So what do I mean by that? I mean the fact that even though this looks like, it's triple colorless energy for 200 damage, and you go, oh yeah, for 3 energy, I would hope it does this much. The fact that it's on Arceus Vstar, especially with its ability to accelerate energy, there's so many ways. I mean, we just saw discussing with Welder, right, that you can already make sure you have 3 energy in 1 turn. There's triple acceleration energy. There's just so many ways to use this attack instantly. And again, Arceus Vstar will find those cards to use the attack instantly. I think that's too strong. I would like to make it cost 4. I don't know how much that would help. I think that would be enough to make it, not be able to do everything all in 1 turn. But this is just one of those things where, if anything, I think the attack's a little bit too strong based off of that cost. Second off here, like I said, is these V-Star powers in general. I think Starbirth in particular needs to be limited down to 1 card. The fact that it gets 2, anytime you see Arceus V-Star evolve into it in Starbirth, it always attacks you. It always gets exactly what it needs. At 1 card, at least maybe they can't like get their energy accelerator and switch at the same, in a single turn. And it doesn't feel so bad, but right now 2 is crazy. And again, I think this goes into the V-Star powers in general. GX attacks never felt bad because they were attacks. They always ended the turn. Like, they were good for sure, but I never ever felt like there was this GX Pokemon that I was like, oh, this GX attacks is so annoying. But I can't tell you how many times I've been playing against this or like Goodra V-Star or something like that. That I'm like, it's just free. It's totally free. There's no drawbacks. I know it says once per game, but that's not a drawback. Like it is so crazy. And so I think you really got to be careful with these kind of abilities, especially since you can do this from the bench. That's even more of the problem with it. And finally here, this is just the same thing that I said with ADP, limit the effect of Trinity Nova. This is yet again the same kind of attack that not only deals damage, but it gets someone on the bench completely ready to go. 3 basic energy, you're guaranteed going to be able to attack with someone else on the bench. So honestly, it feels so bad because you're like struggling to take out Arceus V-Star early in the game, and it just turns into some giant threat in the back. So I think this card is just too easily splashable. It's only going to get crazier as cards get crazier, and I think this is the kind of design that we want to avoid. So anyway, that's going to be it for this episode. That was part 1. I hope you enjoyed these because part 2 has cards that, these were cards where some of them were kind of, I can understand it. I see where it's coming from. The bottom 5 cards here, these are cards that are like, nope, I've got no sympathy for them. So I hope you can look forward to more of my hot takes / rants in part 2 of the video. For now, thanks so much for watching this. If you agreed or if you disagreed, you're like, oh my god, Beyond TCG, you're telling me what I've been saying and no one's listening, but now you're saying it. Or if you're like, nope, these are just hot takes, your voice is bad, and I don't agree with any of them. Let me know in the comments regardless. I always love to hear feedback or just have general discussions of these cards overall. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.